Welcome to Ranting and Raving. Today's topic is mainstream sports media and what's wrong with it. Uh, it's a long list, but we're not going to cover everything. It doesn't mean I'm not going to make more videos about it. I'm just not going to make a 19-hour video because that's about how long it would take to cover in depth all the things that are wrong with modern American sports media. So I mean, let's just get started with the basics. Um, the sports media has the same problems that that regular American media has. Everything is sensationalist. Standard media it's all about it's about fear and panic, covering it, but also inciting it. It's about making you reactionary. It's about attracting eyeballs. It's about clicks. It's about shock, not substance. It's not about informing you. It's not about driving an intelligent conversation. It's not about being the fourth estate. It is entirely about driving clicks, driving ad revenue, and at least in the case of news media, it's driving a narrative. It's not about reporting on the facts, whatever they may be. And unfortunately, sports media is in exactly the same place. It is extremely hyperbolic. It is extremely it's reactionary. It's focused on, and I don't mean this in a good way. It's focusing on capturing the a bar, barroom debates, barbershop, any of those, those places where you typically, historically would have, sports debates, and still do. You can have them there. The issue is that they don't tend to focus on recreating the environment as a whole and having a diverse, number of opinions. And believe it or not, in a lot of barbershops, and bars, like you can find lots of people that'll have like in-depth intelligent discussions with you about sports and debates, and this person's the best, or this team's the best, or I like this, or this is great, or baseball's better than football, or football's better than baseball, or basketball's a bunch of different topics, or hockey, especially hockey fans. Let me tell you, hockey fans will tell you, hockey fans are like CrossFitters and vegans. When the playoffs come, all they want to do is tell you just how much, like, you don't understand when you haven't seen playoff hockey, like you just don't know. And by the way, unlike vegans and CrossFitters, hockey fans actually have a point. Playoff hockey is the only good kind of hockey, but it's amazing. It really is. I don't even like hockey, and it's amazing. But that's neither here nor there. Really, the first thing I want to point out about, just to kind of get back on topic, the first thing I want to point out about modern sports media is how hyperbolic it is. Everybody's the greatest, the best, the worst, the dumbest trade ever, the biggest move, the biggest contract, the everything is all caps. It's extreme, it's excessive, it's reductive, it's extremely reductive, and it's a lot of myth making, and it it's for a number of reasons. Part of it is because that kind of stuff is easy to digest. You either agree or disagree. Jordan's the GOAT, LeBron's the GOAT, this guy's the GOAT, Brady's the GOAT, Manning's the GOAT. We're not even going to talk about Drew Brees, even though he's got a better resume and better numbers than one of those guys. Aaron Rodgers is the most talented quarterback ever. He's not. And he's got a lot of flaws. That doesn't mean he's not an all-time great, but that's how it goes on. Mike Trout's not really Clayton Kershaw, choke artist. Pedro Martinez. You go back to how far you want. Like, these conversations happen, but they happen more now than they used to, and they're the only conversations that happen now. And nuance gets thrown out the door. You don't have a discussion about, okay, well, this team is facing that team and they have this record, and this team leads the league in this, and this, and that team leads the league in this bad thing. This game shouldn't be close. Yeah, their record is only one game apart, but the matchup is blah, blah, blah. That's a nuanced position. That's nuanced analysis. That's telling the fans, hey, you can probably expect this, but hey, it's sports, it's competition. Anything could happen. they could totally pull a rabbit out of the hat. These guys could choke. These guys can make a big play. They could have a great game plan, jump on them early, build up a lead, completely change the game. Like, you can have that conversation, and occasionally we get that conversation in sports coverage, or again, post game or after the fact. This team are the biggest chokers in the history of all time. This team is the worst team in the franchise history. Well, okay, is that objective fact or is that opinion? Are you being hyperbolic or are you being observational? And the majority of the time, American sports media is just they're absurd. And let's because I don't want to. Well, I do kind of want to go down the rabbit hole actually, but I don't want to focus too much on just the broad strokes. The hyperbolic nature, the click hunting, the stupid headlines. People like Skip Bayless. He's both a symptom and a cause. Like, Skip is one of the he's not the first. Jim Rome really kind of created the avenue for Skip Bayless, and someone will probably correct me and tell me that someone else did it. But the general idea is you have these, and I don't care what he is in his in real life, but on TV you have these clowns who are loud about very very generalized statements and opinions that are difficult to empirically disprove, and then they make up a bunch of incoherent bullshit around it that is true simply because they say it's true, and they completely ignore facts, and it turns into an argument with your drunk uncle at the holidays who doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, but won't shut up about it. And for some of you, it may be your aunt, it may be your dad. You may not have family holidays. Like, I'm not going to cover every use case, folks, but you get what I'm getting at. Like, most of us, if not all of us, know someone who's like that. Some of us are that someone. But that guy shouldn't be making millions on TV. And he does because he's rage baiting. Because what Skip Bayless does, other than just fillet Jordan and Brady, what Skip Bayless does is he creates controversy. He makes you hate watch it. He makes you turn in, hoping, praying for a moment, like what happened with Richard Sherman, where Richard Sherman just said, "You suck. I'm better at life than you." And it was a promo. Like, Sherman was playing along. Like, he knew what the game was, but he knew that with his profile, he was going to do that, and it would be great for the show, but it'd be great for him too, because everybody's wanted to say that stuff to Skip. Everybody, okay, not everybody, but most people want to punch Skip Bayless in the face at some point in time if you're really into sports, because at some point in time he's going to say something ridiculous, absurd, stupid, etc., that's going to drive you nuts, because that's the character he plays. You get a lot more Skip Baylesses than you get Rich Eisens, than you get Scott Van Pelt's, than you get I'm sorry, there's a long list of Bomani Jones is actually good, and Bomani's good at being hyperbolic and being over the top, but like when he really gets down to it and starts talking sports, he has intelligent conversations, at least from what I've watched. A guy who he is at times unbelievably hyperbolic, but also will have intelligent conversations is Nick Wright, who's definitely in the wave of new media. He's hyperbolic, he goes way over the top, he's absurd, but at least has data-based, logic-based conversations about pretty much everything other than his his two or three, main topics that he uses to get, publicity and make his money. But it shouldn't be necessary to have those conversations. We have this stupid focus on the GOAT. Here's the reality of the whole GOAT conversation. And I am going to do, I'm going to do a few videos on this. I think there's a lot of GOATs in sports. I think I think the conversation is an interesting one. I think it's actually a really interesting one, especially in certain sports. But I don't think it's interesting in the way that it gets presented. This player is the greatest of all time because of this select group of criteria that happen to perfectly match said player's resume, and every other player gets held up against that resume even in a team game. Like, for Brady has 7 rings. Oh, he's the greatest quarterback of all time. Well, no, he's the best quarterback who's played on the best teams. Tom Brady isn't 7 times the quarterback Drew Brees is. He's not twice the quarterback that Drew Brees is. Frankly, he's not a better quarterback than Drew Brees is. They are in the same tier. He's a better quarterback than Brett Favre was. Favre was more talented, but he wasn't a better player. That's just, if you really look at the actual ability to execute the position and play the game, the gap isn't nearly as big as media coverage would have you believe. But media coverage just focuses on the click, just focuses on the big statement. This player's the greatest of all time. This player's the best. These team are choke artists. And that has to be reserved for the Atlanta Falcons, folks. I mean, really, 28-3. It's the greatest choke in the history of time. Although a few days ago, the NCAA championship, you would see they went full Falcon, up 20 at the half and lost after ending Coach K's career with a big OL. Like that is going full Falcon. But here's another issue that I have with American sports media. And I keep saying American because I don't watch sports media for other countries, so I don't know if it's just as bad as ours. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not. It's not just the click chasing and then the being hyperbolic and being ridiculous and absurd and over the top. It's the total lack of facts in coverage when they have all of these debate shows and all of these talk shows, and they say a lot of stuff that just is flat out not true, but they do a lot, like I said earlier, they do a lot of myth making. This player has never failed to come back. This player is the most clutch player of all time. This player has hit every game winner they've ever attempted. This player is the best beyond contestation and measure. No, they're really, really, really good. They're not that. And when you take out context and you take out nuance, and just for a second, I brought him up earlier, and I'm a Saints fan, so of course I'm going to use him as an example. But let's talk about Drew Brees for a second in media coverage. From 2006 through 2020, Drew Brees was a top 5 quarterback in the NFL until 2020. Every single year he played, and in most of those years, almost all of them, he was a top 3, but never less than top 5. Even in 2019, where he was a diminished form of himself, he was so efficient and so effective. He's still in the MVP conversation. Like Drew Brees is absolutely not only an all-time great, but if you look at his media coverage, he never got the acclaim of his contemporaries. Now, some of that's market, but a lot of that is because of the way that media does coverage. Because all the like Tom Brady won 7 championships. He's played like 24 years in the league or something like that. He didn't win every year, but the coverage is always about him. Coverage was about Peyton Manning too, because his famous daddy played. Like, yeah, he was an incredible quarterback, but his level of play relative to his contemporaries was not greater to, explain the coverage difference. It was the name recognition, that he was second generation, that he was the chosen son, that he drew ratings, that he was incredible. He was awesome. He was amazing. He was a walking system. Like, all these things can be true. Peyton Manning wasn't a better quarterback than Drew Brees. Like, they had different strengths. They're in the same tier. Drew's the most accurate passer ever. Drew, before he started having the shoulder problems towards the end of his career, was, you can talk about, he was the dink and dunk king. Actually, Drew Brees led the league in both big plays and big play completion percentage a lot of years. It's the only quarterback with multiple 5,000-yard seasons. I think maybe Brady has 2, but regardless, like Drew he's got 5. Like, that's ridiculous. And that's not and none of those years, they were going 3-13. Drew Brees has had his defense blow a comeback win where he, within the last 2 minutes, he goes and gets the lead and they just need a stop to win the game. he's had his team blow those leads more than like the other top 4 quarterbacks combined, I believe. I can go get the numbers, but you can find them if you want to look for them. And again, that's not saying he's better than Brady or Manning, but it's the point I'm making is why does this player, who's just as good as these other guys that are getting covered and just as great at his job, doesn't get even a fraction of the coverage? And that happens across all of sports. You know, hell, look at Giannis right now. Giannis is incredible. He's the best defensive player in the league. He's a top 3 or 4 offensive player in the league. Like, oh, he can't shoot. Okay, neither could Shaq. Doesn't matter if you can't stop it. And we're not going to talk about the old heads and their idiotic comments. Like, I just call it Kenny Smithing. Yeah, because Kenny Smith is. I used to love to watch Open Court, and as much as Charles says dumb shit, Kenny Smith is the all-time leader of saying just dumb ass shit that doesn't hold water for anything with great conviction. So I call it Kenny Smithing. Like I'm not going to get into all of that, but it is part of the media coverage, and it is part of how these things get bad. You know, we ignore nuance. We ignore, okay, well, yeah, this player won, 20% the number of championships as this player. This player also played in a harder division, had worse teams, had a worse coach, had worse defenses. Like there's all these contributing circumstances. Hey, Tiger won less, less majors than Jack. He never caught Jack. He's not gonna catch Jack. Okay. Tiger Woods is still the greatest golfer. Tiger Woods at his peak is one of the most dominant forces we've ever seen in sports, period. Like ever. Tiger Woods was Roy Jones level of dominant. And if you don't know why I chose Roy Jones versus Floyd Mayweather, look up Roy Jones. Floyd Mayweather wasn't even a fucking name until Roy was pretty much done. Like the level, and by the way, there was a big period of overlap in their boxing careers. Like Roy Jones Jr. was dominant. Shaq was dominant. Tiger was dominant. Here's the thing. With Tiger, we recognize that he was dominant. He made golf get on TV. He made golf like get huge ratings on TV. So we give him his flowers. But there's plenty of other athletes in other sports who don't get the conversations they should. They don't get the coverage they should. They don't get the respect they should. Chris Webber's a great one for you. Go look up Chris Webber's career. What is Chris Webber's media coverage? It's always about this. It's about the bad timeout. Let's ignore the fact that Chris Webber is the only reason why you know about the Fab Five. That's 4 role players that no one would have remembered the name of, and Chris Webber. Sorry, Jalen Rose. You wouldn't be on TV. You wouldn't be a household name if it wasn't for Chris Webber. He still would have played in the NBA, but that Fab Five designation matters. It matters with people knowing your name. It matters you being recognizable, and being recognizable lets you jump media people and get on TV, get on sports media, and this is how it works. And that's kind of the last thing I actually want to talk about is the final segue here is just in general, like, and Jalen Rose is actually an example of not doing this. It's just funny that I kind of used him as the segue, but we misuse former players in sports media a lot. If you might remember, especially if you're watching this, I'm assuming you're a sports fan, but a few years ago, Tony Romo started calling football games, and everybody fell in love with it immediately because he was, oh, they're going to do this, and then it would happen. It's almost like he was a really, really, really good quarterback and knows how to read situations and plays, and is like, oh, they're probably going to do that. But that's the thing. That's where you want to use former players. Get the ones who can talk, but put them in position to talk about the game. Let them be teachers. And you know how I know this is the right way to use former players? There's this guy. His name was John Madden. He kind of talked a little bit funny, but he was pretty charismatic, but he really knew football. And while he would goofily explain things to you, people who didn't know much about football could watch football, hear John Madden talk about football, and go, oh, that kind of makes sense, and learn football. Well, John Madden was so good at that they eventually made a video game. A video game that, until it fell from the heavens into becoming a piece of crap, was iconic. That's proper usage of former players. Like, should Reggie Miller be calling basketball games as a color guy? God, no, he's terrible. Same thing with Jeff Van Gundy. Like, stop putting former athletes, or especially former coaches, to cover your sport who do nothing but shit on the product in front of them. Unless they're giving James Harden crap for cheating the game of basketball and being just a fucking con man basketball player. Him and Trae Young, both incredibly talented players, both incredibly skilled and good. When they do the con man crap, roast them. But like the rest of the time, you don't need that. That's bad usage. Like, put them in a position to do post game, or put them in a position to do halftime and to talk about the game. Hey, instead of, bringing on Shaq to just go, throw me the ball, throw him the ball, dunk it, barbecue chicken. Okay, well, Shaq, you're one of the most physically dominating athletes in the history of ever, and Shaq was an underrated skill wise. He was actually a very good passer, and he had really good feet, and like he was a good player. But there was a degree of, no, Shaq just dunks on people. And Shaq didn't need to do other things than dunk on people because no one could stop Shaq from dunking on people. But it's not useful content for you to be at the halftime of a playoff game and one team's up 12, and sometimes it's not the team you thought it was going to be, and Shaq goes, they just need to step up and play harder. And Chuck does the same thing. That's not useful. How about pointing out, well, they're doing this, they're running this coverage, they're doing this thing over here. That's why they're having so much success. These guys need to find a counter for that if they want to make it come back in the second half. Like, you can do the funny stuff, but actually teach people about your game. And we do this, we do it in baseball too, but baseball, at least in my opinion, is a different problem. Baseball is completely run by the old crowd. Can't celebrate, can't bat flip, can't do this, can't do that, can't have any fucking fun. Just for kicks. If you want to understand how wrong American baseball gets it, go online and watch Korean or Japanese baseball. Just watch it. You watch a highlight film. See how much fun they have. Here's a hint. When the players are having fun, the fans can have fun because the fans feel like they're part of the show and they're getting a good show. Ironically, that's the name of your video game and you don't have a good one. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not talking about the video game. I'm talking about you don't have a good show. But anyway, that's really, I could go on about this forever. It's a huge source of annoyance for me. But these are really my thoughts on American sports media, and my biggest issue with it. It's the GOAT focus, the ring chasing, the stupid narratives, completely ignoring facts, no context, no nuance, misusing players, and bringing in former players and putting them in media positions, and then not leveraging the thing that makes them the most valuable to be in that spot, which is their knowledge about the game. Don't assume that your fans don't want to know more about the game. Guess what? They do. Here's a hint. Podcasts and blogs are becoming the most digested form of sports media. There's a reason for that. Because podcasts and blogs are primarily done by fans. And it's not just because, oh, I'm a fan of this team, so I'm going to listen to this team centric thing. Well, they are, but most of them actually take it seriously. They cover that team, but it's not just a fan going, yeah, we're going to win every game and we're going to be unstoppable. It's going to be amazing. No. They talk about, well, how can we win every game? And what do we need to watch out for? And why is this trade good? Or why should we be worried about that? The bloggers and the podcasters are filling the hole that the media is leaving. I don't have to guess that I'm right on this. The market is making it pretty clear that I am, because people are choosing to consume their content in those spaces, and that content is predominantly around analysis. Why is this good? Why is this bad? Why might you want to watch that player? Hey, how the hell did they win that game? Well, they did this thing that you've probably never heard of. Oh, that's cool. I'm going to go tell my friends and feel smarter about football, baseball, basketball, hockey, whatever. I didn't say soccer because, I live in America, and let's just be real. Football, not super huge here. So I'm not going to pretend like it is, or I know anything about it other than I'm terrible. Yeah, I played like twice, and I got kicked out of both games because they tried to do me the little elbow crap when you're running up the field, and he elbowed me in the hip, and I punched him in the face. It wasn't. Yeah, it's not for me. Thanks for bringing us flopping, though. The NBA is really so much better now that we have the. I'll stop. That's a different rant. Thank you for joining me on Ranting and Raving. As always, subscribe button down below. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that's appreciated. If you hate me and you think I'm stupid, but you somehow made it through this video, tell me in the comment section. And if you enjoyed it, tell me in the comment section. And if you didn't, that's okay. Tell your friends, and now they can suffer along with you. But it's always appreciated. Hope you enjoyed the content, and we'll be back again next time with another video.